I need for you to meet this woman. I don't know how else to say this, but I am so excited to finally do this show. I got to know my next guest, basically via social media and some pro police things. And then we started talking, and she's not just somebody who, waves a flag and says, "Oh, let's back the blue," and things like that. She comes up with things to do, tasks, solutions, and then she writes about it. And she now has an excellent following, and she's a real mover and shaker in the support law enforcement world. And so I think you need to meet her. Paula Fitzsimmons, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Betsy. Thank you so much for that introduction. And it's an honor to be here. Thank
So
you.
you write a Substack for the Blue. So
Right.
we're going to talk more about that. But you are not associated with law enforcement, affiliated with law enforcement in any way. It's just that you live in a fairly, let's just say, a far left kind of place in the Midwest, near where I grew up, and you got to know your police officers through Neighborhood Watch, a program
Right.
near and dear to me. I used to run it for my community, and then something happened in 2015 that made you really start taking a much closer look at the attacks on American law enforcement. Talk about that.
We were noticing right after this police officer involved incident that was completely deemed justified by the district attorney. Police critics would say and do things towards the police that didn't match what we knew about them. We knew them to be professional men and women, very dedicated, very caring. We knew them through public meetings. We met them through our local neighborhood watch, and they were always very, very smart, very caring, very dedicated. Nothing at all like the critics had described. So I knew at that point I had to say something and do something. And they were attacking our beloved Chief Koval, and if you've ever met him, he's just an amazing person. And they didn't deserve any of it. So I knew I had to stand up and speak up. So I formed a group called We Support the Madison Police Department, and we got a lot done during that time. We actually shepherded through a state law to benefit the Wisconsin Law Enforcement Memorial. We lobbied successfully for more police officers, which, given our city's political environment, wasn't the easiest thing to do. Nobody thought we could do it, but we only had two council members that voted against it, so we were really pleased with that. We held 4 annual parties to show appreciation for the police, and it was like a community open house, so it was kind of like an appreciation / meet and greet the officers. And we had local businesses donate. So we had buffet tables, we had brats, grilled brats, we had pizzas, mostaccioli, salads, capes. We had the police horses there. We had the dogs. It was really a good time. And I really miss those parties. We held a vigil when somebody vandalized the law enforcement memorial downtown. Instead of getting angry, we decided to hold a special vigil to honor the officers. And we had the state's attorney, Brad Schimmel, former state's attorney, Brad Schimmel. We had a senator. We had the person from the Wisconsin Law Enforcement Memorial, and we paid a tribute. And it brought the community together, and it showed the police officers that we still have their back. So we turned a negative experience into something positive. We also did a lot of educational programs, including we did a book project with Heather McDonald's book, The War on Cops. So we bought all these books for her, and she kindly autographed it for us. And we handed it out to the city council, each member of the city council and the mayor. And then several of us went to a meeting and we read from the book and we share things from the book. So, and I think it may have opened up some minds. We also had a yard sign project. we had these yellow signs made up, and people would put them up through the city. And I'm not sure, depending on where you live, I'm not sure I would recommend this because ours were vandalized constantly. I mean, we would put one up, someone would write something really nasty on there, so we would keep putting them up. And somebody actually went around town and stole them, and the police found a bunch of them in their car. We did a lot of media interviews, and we had an information website where we educated people. And I think most importantly, we pushed back against, we found opportunities to push back against negative narratives, whether by writing op-eds or talking to the media or going to council meetings or, writing articles on the website and so forth. And I think it really did make a difference.
I gotta tell you, Paula, everything you just described there, everything you just did is basically what the National Police Association is all about. You, as citizens, advocated for your law enforcement officers. And I think that's what is so extraordinary. And that's why I wanted to talk to you because, I also came from a community in the Midwest where we had strong citizen support of our police department. Our citizens group, we had a group called Citizens Appreciate Police. They had an award ceremony every year for us. We had a community radio watch where they would patrol and calling crimes. And we had police explorers. We had so many different programs. And I can't tell you, as a police officer, how good that makes you feel to have your citizens advocating for you in the community instead of just, it's great to go up to a police officer and say, we appreciate you, we support you and things like that. But you guys, you put in the time and the miles and the money and it was really successful. Let's just tell people you're in Madison, Wisconsin. That's where this took place. Beautiful, beautiful city. I've spent a lot of time there. And but the university there is oftentimes called the Berkeley of the Midwest. Yeah. And it can be very far left in its politics. And you guys took that on and you did so much good.
Yeah, and I will say it was very challenging. It wasn't a cakewalk. I mean, we took a lot of harassment. There was a point I had to shut my website down. Somebody was sending me emails, like I would get literally, I'm not kidding, like 300, 400 a day. It was like disgusting things. So things like that. And they would boo us in meetings.
But they're the tolerant left.
Pardon?
They call themselves the tolerant left. They're the tolerant ones.
Inclusivity.
Exactly. As long as you think just like them. So, and I want people to know this is, again, like when you said you had to shut off your website, you're a professional author, right? You're a professional writer.
Right. I write, but I don't write about law enforcement. I actually write about science and pets and about veterinarians. I write for veterinarian publications. I write for pet publications and that sort of thing. So it's completely different, but I do love to write. So I wanted to use my skills and to benefit the police. So
right. So fast forward to 2020 and the death of George Floyd. And what did you see in Wisconsin?
It was awful. Pretty much what you saw around the country, Betsy. There were riots. There were people throwing those Molotov cocktails at cops. They were throwing it like in cars with cops in it. We saw images of cop cars completely on fire. Basically what you saw in the media we had down there. There were reports of people trying to run down the police. And the district attorney actually did not prosecute a lot of them. A lot of them got a free pass. So for assaulting an officer, you get a free pass. And that's an area of frustration, I think, for law enforcement, as well as the public who care about law enforcement.
So, after you saw all that, you started to do some significant writing, didn't you?
Right. I had taken a short hiatus from the local group. I figured I had done all I can do for that group, and Chief Koval had left, and it just didn't have a lot of the cops we knew had left at that point. It just didn't have the same vibe. It's still an excellent police department, don't get me wrong, but it didn't have that. We didn't feel like that same connection.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of took a break. And then after watching what happened in 2020 and seeing that the war on cops had accelerated after George Floyd, I wanted to get back into it. But this time I wanted to do it on a nationwide level and take what I knew, my experiences from Madison, and then apply that nationwide. So right now, we're focused on a few things. Like one of the biggest priorities right now is networking with other organizations. And for instance, and as you may know, I'm partnering with the International Independent Women's Network, and we're trying to make this issue make women, and we have a network of 30,000 more aware of this issue, because we're the ones actually that are more at risk from sexual assaults and human trafficking and domestics and that sort of thing. And I just found it interesting, if not aggravating, that most of the women's organizations don't even touch this issue. So I found, and you purport to support women, yet this is an area that's affecting us. So that was an area of frustration that nobody was tackling it. So IWN is focused on that. So I'm partnering with them, and in turn, they're partnering with other organizations. So it's kind of like a snowball effect. We're kind of gathering a network. So one of the things we're doing is creating presentations, a series of presentations. 3 is part of a mini series, and the first one is called "How the War on Cops Hurts Us and What We Can Do to Take Back Public Safety." And that was our first. We're going to be working on another segment on how the war on cops harms marginalized communities. And number 3, we're going to be doing another segment on how crime statistics can be misleading and manipulated. So that is big.
These are all amazing topics, and I'm so glad that you're partnering with women's organizations, because again, as we talk about this, and you and I have talked about this, as we see the skyrocketing crime around the country, it's not just homicides in bad neighborhoods in big cities, right, and things like that. One of the things that we are seeing are the sexual assaults, the human trafficking, we see women-owned businesses that there are shoplifters and burglars and armed robbers, and we are seeing a huge impact in the lives of women in this country. And unfortunately, this issue has become politicized. So a lot of women kind of believe they have to vote left because, right, whether it's because of, women's rights or that euphemism, reproductive health or yeah, whatever, when they don't realize, I think a lot of the times women don't realize, especially young women, that if you support law enforcement, you're actually advocating for your own health and safety.
Exactly, Betsy, exactly. And we have so much to lose right now. It's really scary. I mean, there's, and I just wrote an ebook, and then it covers a lot of the materials, and I covered it in my presentation, how we're affected. I mean, there are cities like Los Angeles that are disbanding special units, like special victims units, animal cruelty units, homeless units, things like that. New York is not solving rapes like it used to. Seattle is only taking on taking on sexual assault cases that impact younger, like girls, or where they have information. If it's an older woman, they have to have information, or it has to be a current case. So, I mean, these are things that really do impact us. And a lot of these women's organizations just don't even want to touch it because, like you said, it's politicized. and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be.
What are some of the topics? Because I want everybody to go to your Substack, and I want them to subscribe to your Substack. Talk about some of the topics that you've written on recently, because you touch everything, and I want people to know.
Well, let's see. I talk about weak leadership and how that's impacting policing. I talk about how crime statistics can be misleading. I talk about how the overzealous indictment, the wrongful overzealous indictment of cops is hurting us. I brought up, that case with Agent Wagner here in Madison, and I talked to the FOP president here in Wisconsin. And I try to give resources and give people hope. I want to give police officers hope and for them to know that there are people who actually care. I'm trying to think what else. How women are harmed. How women are harmed. And then sometimes I go a little off topic about how men are not the enemy and that sort of thing, how they've become kind of like we're oppressed. You know what I mean? Some groups like to say we're oppressed. I don't feel oppressed. So
I mean, sometimes I've heard activists talk about law enforcement as the patriarchy. And I look in the mirror and I'm like, really? Do you really think that? And but that's the thing, because, and again, there's nobody more sexist than a feminist activist. I mean, I became a police officer in 1980. I'm pretty long in the tooth, if you will. And I watched my mother, a school teacher, who was a classical feminist. And she was one of those first feminists who worked outside the home, got 2 master's degrees, and raised 2 kids, true feminism. And
that's what I think of, right?
Yeah. Right. And that's
women's rights, feminism. Yes.
But, now you see people who call themselves feminists, but yet they say, law enforcement's a bunch of toxic masculinity. I'm like, well, I did that for 29 years. I'm not particularly toxically masculine. And, but it did. And we have to laugh at it and we have to make fun of it, because otherwise we'd all be crying all the time, because it is. I know it's frustrating for me as a police officer and the spokesman for the National Police Association. And I know it's frustrating for you as a citizen, as an American, and as an author and a researcher, isn't it?
It's very frustrating. And I'm very frightened. I do what I can, and I'm working really hard to support the police and bring together people. Honestly, Betsy, I don't even know if this will put a dent in it. It's better than doing nothing. We have to do something. I mean, it's, sitting back and complaining and hashtagging on social media. That's not getting us anywhere. We have to start talking to our legislators. We have to start urging them to craft bills that support police officers. We have to start doing more things that actually count.
If somebody's watching, Paula, and they want to start something for their local police department, how do you recommend starting that process like you did 10, 12 years ago?
Betsy, honestly, it just takes one person. I had a few helpers along the way, but I basically did most of it. And it just takes one person. Just start off slowly. You don't have to do everything. Don't overwhelm yourself. Just start by talking to police officers, go on ride-alongs, go to the Citizen Academy, get to know the issues, start speaking up, writing op-eds, go to city council meetings, push back against policies that will harm police. They want to do bans on tear gas, things like that. They want the cops to stand down, start talking back, push back, tell the public, tell whoever will listen that these policies are harmful to police officers and they're harmful to us. Tell people about how the war on police has harmed recruiting and how, as a result, these special units are closing down and things like that. I do have a booklet, and I did send you a copy. It's an ebook, and in the back I put a list of different things people can do to start supporting their police department, both locally, statewide level, and at the federal level. And I'm going to actually put it out tonight. I haven't really made it public yet, but I encourage people to. It's completely free. And I do everything on a volunteer basis. I don't accept any money. My website is not revenue based or anything like that. It's strictly a labor of love. And I do this as a concerned American because I see, the nation is in decline. And one thing we really need in an era where we have increased civil, riots and civil disobedience, we have, the borders out of control, we have rising crime, we have threats from, other countries. We need the basics. We need the police. We need the military.
So, Paula, where can people find you on social media? Where can they find your Substack? Where can they get the book?
Okay, Substack is fortheblue.substack.com. And I just finished the book yesterday. It should be available by this weekend. If you go to the website, you can find more information about it. I'll also be mentioning it on my Twitter account, which is fortheblue1.
Right. And that's for the blue number 1.
Right.
Awesome. Paula, I know you're so busy. I cannot thank you enough for taking time out to talk with us today. And if you would like more information about the National Police Association, visit us at nationalpolice.org.
Ma'am, put the gun down! Put the gun down!
Last year, law enforcement officers were involved in hundreds of thousands of use of force incidents. A use of force incident is when an officer must use nonverbal tactics to gain control of a dangerous situation.
Put the knife on the ground.
In many cases, officers have no choice but to use force when a suspect doesn't comply with a lawful order.
Use of force is always ugly. No one likes it, especially police officers.
Together, we can help de-escalate these dangerous encounters. Help police officers by complying with their lawful orders. Don't attack, attempt to disarm, or flee from an officer.
Use of force is an officer's last option. Most incidents can be avoided by not resisting arrest.
If you feel you've been wrongfully detained by a police officer, then seek a legal solution after the encounter has been resolved.
Let's keep everyone safe. Comply now and complain later.